Hey everybody, Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols here, and we're doing another tactical fitness report. Today we are going to talk about how you debrief your training. And what we mean by that is, what are the things that you are doing right or wrong to produce a certain level of performance, right? Did you have a good day today? Did you have a bad day today? Right? And so let's go through some of the things that we do whenever we're debriefing both good and bad performance, whether it's ourselves or people that we train every day. So what are some of the big indicators for you, Jeff?
Yeah, I think just before I jump into like the indicators, the big thing I want, why that Stu and I feel like this is one of the reasons why I feel this is super valuable is because if you haven't spent a lot of time training, like there's so many of you that are within the first 18 months of your training. So you're relatively new to it. Not to say you haven't learned a great deal, but the thing is if you constantly are debriefing how things went, like in your own mind, like, okay, I had a good day of training today. Why do you think that was? Like, oh, I slept good. Like you can usually kind of draw those threads as our point. If it's bad, you can draw similar type threads and kind of come to the conclusion and go, okay, I didn't sleep good. I was stressed out. I was stressed out over home, girlfriend, homework, whatever it may be. So a lot of times we should stop thinking just coincidentally it was a good day. I don't know how I got a good day. I don't know how I got a bad day, all those sort of things. So that's my point is if you've been training long enough, you're already evaluating that stuff by proxy. You just do it. You're just like, oh yeah, last time I did this, I didn't sleep good. I know I had a bad training day. But when you're new, we just think that we're just going to train hard and recover, and like it's just the way the human body does, because as kids, that's what happens, right? We play hard. Mom and dad feeds us food, and we're not sore the next day, right? So long story short is this, take a look at what you've done, and that's why I want you to take notes. But again, so the indicators, as Stu has mentioned, like for me is, is how am I going to evaluate?
Let's take the PST, for instance.
Okay. Yeah. So
take the PST every 2 weeks.
Right. And so that in itself, because the numbers you're trying to achieve, like you have these constant points of assessment, right? And that's fine. Like we always want points of assessment, but we have to understand that those points of assessment don't have to be just the PST. And I think that's where people get a little bit off track and they go, well, how can I possibly know if I'm getting better at my push-ups if I'm not maximally testing push-ups? Well, there's multiple different parameters. You just got to step back and go, well, really, timeline. Like you have to have a timeline to make this stuff fit. So that's for me is like establish timeline and then establish other points of like test that aren't just the test. And that's why I would say movement, right? Now, obviously we have weights on the bars and stuff like that, but we also have to, try to learn how to evaluate movement quality. And it's not just based on time. So that's what I'm looking at for me, Stu. Initially, I just want to look and see like, okay, what timeline are we working with? So that will determine like how much debrief and dissection I need and how much just shut your mouth and training I need.
Yeah. You know what, regardless, I think it's very healthy to, have a workout log of some sort, whenever you are, especially when you're trying to optimize your test scores.
Yeah.
So that you can see on day 5 of the month, you scored, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 20 pull-ups, 9-minute run, 9-minute swim. All right, for instance. But on day 15, you did 85, 15, 10-minute run, 9-minute swim. Why? Why does that happen? Can you just chalk it up to a bad day? Right. I would say go deeper than that, because there's usually a reason why you had a bad day.
Here's the thing, and I just top on that. And this is simply put, and Stu is going to highlight it perfectly. This is why we say, and this is why I always say, there are no coincidences when it comes to the human body. Now there's some mysteries. Cancer is a bit of a mystery, right? Or certain sort of like depths of soreness and the difficulty of getting rid of tendinitis. But to say like acutely, like, I don't know why I had a bad day without asking, what did my day look like prior, is probably your starting point. Not just go throw your hands up and go, I don't know.
Yeah, usually what I do is I'll look at the previous 24 hours, and then if that's not making sense, I'll look at the previous 5 or 6 days.
Yes.
Because here's the problem. If you're taking a PST and it's day 5 of a 6-day training week, you may be a little tired, especially if you didn't take a recovery day prior to that. So think of this. You got to fuel yourself. You have to recover. You got a good night's sleep. Sleep's our number one recovery tool. What are you drinking? And those are the big 3, I think.
Yep.
Sleep, eat, and drink.
Yep.
How did those look in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Aside from setting, like you said, parameters, but right. Like those are the 3 things you're really measuring in a program, right? If you take like the macro look, it's like we have to apply stress. That's the running, swimming resistance. We're applying stress to get an adaptation that is faster, stronger, whatever it may be. Well, if we have the training, what other 2 components do you need? Like generally, right? And Stu said them. You need to be able to sleep. You need to have food. Eat. Let's put food and hydration in the same little category, consumption, sure. Right? But that's really what it is. Those are the big 3. If any of those 3 are deficient or in deficit, it will impact. There's no like, well, I'm going to eat more to sleep less, or I'm going to sleep more so I can eat less. They're not interchangeable. Before I get down the weeds, because I could correct.
Yeah.
Depending on the training environment, the specificity of the event, you can shift some things around. But generally speaking, look at your training. Okay, got it. If you're training off of Stu's methodology or mine or some combination of ours and some other people, good, training set. Okay, let's look at sleeping. When Stu and I have talked to exhaustion, if you're not following those guidelines, work towards following them. Okay. And the same thing with hydration and food. Like, we're not dietitians, but I know we've given enough advice to direct you to a dietitian or give you solid guidance.
Yeah. Well, like for instance, this question came up in an email, and all I did was I answered this guy's question with a question. Yep. Right. And all I said was, hey, Stu, last week I barely passed the PST. This week I had the best scores I've ever had, and it like 20% increase. And all I said, well, what'd you do in the last 24 hours prior to this performance? So it doesn't matter, regardless of how you perform, good or bad or mediocre. Take a look at what you did in the last 24 hours. Then you can kind of make adjustments to that. Do you need to eat a little better? Do you need to not go out and stay out past midnight, drinking a 6-pack of beer?
Yep.
Whatever that is, take your training a little more seriously, and you may see serious results in a very short time, especially if you can really nail down this 24-hour pre-test cycle.
Right.
Because that is something that takes time to do. You need to experiment with this, because I may say, sleep 7 hours, eat a good breakfast, eat a good lunch, take some fruits and vegetables with you, drink some Gatorade during the test.
Yeah.
That works for me, right? It may not be your perfect solution. You may need, a different form of carbohydrate or protein, in the mix. But 9 times out of 10, sleep is going to be a big factor of your performance. And that's really any human performance for that matter.
So again, let's take, like, for me, just to kind of interject a little bit, is that I remember being stressed out in these moments and going to do the PST, and I probably had a bit of loss of appetite. But one thing that I've rarely experienced is a loss of ability to thirst and to hydrate.
Yeah.
Like really, there's cases where you're just like, you're over, like you're full, right? You don't want any more fluid, or you're just really bad heat exhaustion. You don't feel like even taking in water until your body temperature comes down. My point is this. So when we're saying sleep, eat, and in your training, if those are good, but understand, like, going into the PST, which is why we've said multiple occasions, what you feel, how you feel your workout, as far as like the particulars, like, do you use Rice Krispie treats? Do you use what pre-workout? What do you use? Like, you have to look ahead and, like, at Great Lake, again, we'll talk in terms of buds.
Yeah.
You won't know exactly the menu of what's going on at Great Lakes, but suffice it to say, you're going to find cereal, you're going to find oatmeal, you're going to find powdered eggs, you're going to find really crappy bacon. You're going to find your typical crap food. Again, it's not about that. But my point is you can acquire better at home, I guess, is my point. So, but we don't want you eating crap food before you train, but we also kind of want you to experiment like, okay, the food I'm going to get at Bud's is better, but you're still going to be the standards, your cereals, your eggs, your hash browns, like it's standard sort of food. You get used to eating that stuff and seeing how it impacts your training, because that's going to be the primary fuel source when you get down the road active duty. So that's what also says, like, look at timeline in that, looking at food going, well, I do want to experiment. Like let's say you don't eat breakfast. It's probably a good idea to learn, right? Or you're always just a cereal eater, but you might not have the palate for eating a lot of milk and cereal. So you might have to shift to oatmeal. You're like, well, if all I've got is oatmeal and eggs, maybe I should get used to eating oatmeal and eggs. So that's what I mean. Like in that this debrief process that Stu and I are talking about are just like, it's formulating a plan. It's looking at your process and saying, well, can I create a process that I'm real comfortable with? And I can kind of, uproot that process like a plant, divide a little bit of it, plop it in a new location and grow that space. That's what we're trying to get you to do. Not just go like, well, I'm not getting better. I'm not blame it on the program. Blame it on the program. Blame it on the program if the program is flawed. Absolutely. But you got to look at yourself first.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only are you trying to create a system, but you also need to assess that system regularly.
Yep.
Right. And just find out where your optimal level lies. Right. And just understand you need this amount of sleep. You need to eat this. If you can have some snacks in your pocket throughout your day, to help fuel yourself in between lunch and dinner, not a bad idea. Like I said, Ziploc, honey packages, Ziploc bag full
lots of options. There's
carrots and
more
bananas
options.
Or whatever.
Yeah, there's enough options to eliminate almost all excuses. That's the idea. Is like, granted, there are plenty of excuses out there that you're just like, you know what, you're better off just taking the day off, right? Got it.
Yeah.
But for the most of us, we run into or create excuses because we didn't create the priority.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the cool thing about this. As you get better and better and better at your PST, you can start performing at that level. That is your new baseline.
Yeah.
Right. But this takes time to do. Like, you can have a bad day and still be top 10% of your PST group. Right. You can have a bad day prior, maybe even fighting a cold, not 100%, but still pass the PST on any given day. Right. And that's the kind of level of fitness we're talking about here, not to the point of where you're borderline pass or fail, and on a bad day, you're going to fail, or on a day that you didn't sleep very well, you're going to fail. Right. So there's a reason why you want to go through these assessments regularly, because you want to be able to see like, wow, man, I slept 3 hours last night, but I still crushed the PST. That's pretty good.
Right.
You're starting to build that type of ability that, you are finding places to recover, but you also have a level of fitness that this is your new baseline.
Yep.
Even when you're not recovering very well, you have a baseline up to here. And that carries you a long way.
Yeah.
In a long week of training at Bud's, where you're just getting banged up and you're not feeling 100%, but guess what? You're still performing at a high level.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, this might be a topic it's hard to deliver, because we're talking about like, hey, debrief and what's the value, because really it is the assessment. It puts you in a constant state of assessment. That's the goal. Over time, it will, in real time. That's what we want people, because in a training environment, not in the actuation of that training. Again, I'm not saying like when you're on the range, when you're a novice shooter on the range or a free throw shooter, you're going to work basic stuff. You should be working basics to improve on that. So then as time passes, you're put into an actual scenario, you become reactionary based off of that training. Okay. We're trying to establish the same thing. And that's why you will encounter a fair amount of difficulty understanding this, like the training thing. Like it can be complex. It can be overwhelming, but you will always be confused if you don't educate yourself in the front end, like debriefing each time. We go, okay, well, because then what ends up happening is, like, especially someone that's new and novice, they look at those, the 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, like that's in their head. That's their goal. They're only looking at how far away from they are. So they start, people start creating shortcuts around training, think it's going to get them faster based off of more time, heavier weight, or more swimming hours, or just everything, just more. And that's the problem, is because they don't learn in the moment. And that's when that's why so many guys and men and women run into they're stuck around 10 minutes in the swim. They're stuck around the 9:30 in the run. They're stuck around the 60 sit-ups. They're stuck around 14 pull-ups. You get to see this trend. They're stuck around 65 push-ups.
Yeah, there's plateaued somewhere for some reason. Yeah. So
many people in that 10 to 15% stuck. And that's because what happens is they've just, through attrition, like just train hard, gotten here and go, well, that's what got me here, just training hard. Well, at some point, the body is just going to go, we need to also train smart. And so we hit this huge plateau. And that's what's really common, especially like we're in training for buds, for example. It's every component of fitness. It's not just, hey, I'm a 100-meter sprinter. My energy system is this. This is what I'm training. It's a little bit easier to dissect. But now we're trying to dissect something that is like I can't dissect your training necessarily. That's why we're trying to teach you to do it. So you can communicate to your coaches and go, this is the specific problem I ran into. Because I guess it's all about formulation of questions and proper. So like if you're understanding and assessing to a degree to an 80 percentile, you bring that question, that 80% question to Stu or I or another professional, it's very easy for us to go, yep, you're on track. Do this, change this. What about this? It's not this, well, it depends. Because then it's just like, you're like, man, these guys, it's frustrating. They never really give me a straight answer. And we go, it's tough because the question you're asking, you're not even asking the right question, unfortunately. A lot of times we're just like, you're missing the point entirely, because so many people message us, and that's fine, but understand, like, this goes to this, all of this, and I'll shut up, is so many questions get asked, although the heart is in the right place. If Stu and I were to answer those questions perfectly, it wouldn't help you. So it's like inconsequential. Like, what socks should I be wearing? Doesn't matter. It doesn't. Put the miles in, put the weight training in. Then you get into the point where, like, hey, I've been weight training for X number of months. Like, then you can talk about, hey, anyone out there got some, like, what socks are you wearing? Because I'm wearing these and they're just not quite keeping up. Or, hey, you can't engage in the particulars and limitations of equipment, training, and dietetics until you've reached it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So don't ask.
You don't know if it's going to work for you or not. Yeah, you might be asking a question about something you've never tried. My answer is try it. Let's see if it works.
There you go. Because if you try it smart. Yeah. The risk of injury or anything is extremely low.
Yeah. Try it smart and, see where it goes. But it doesn't matter what you're testing. I do this on highly productive days at work. Right. If I had a really highly productive day and I just crushed stuff and like just had my focus, my mental acuity was like 100%. And I take a look back. Well, what was my last 24 hours like?
Yeah.
Right. I always ask myself this. So be in a constant state of assessment of your day, good or bad. Right. And you should be able to nail things down pretty easily. Like you ate like crap, so you feel like crap. You didn't sleep.
Right, because Stu already gave you the two big brackets. Be truthful about how you ate, when you ate, not like, oh, I ate 3 square meals, but one of them was like 15 minutes before, and I'm going to count that as like a piece of pizza from, no, like
right.
Sleeping, eating, training. And be truthful to yourself, because if you're like, there's a shortcut here, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Don't take shortcuts.
There you go. So this was a little quick little podcast on self-assessment, I guess. But it works really well in any type of human performance endeavor, if you think about it. I mean, no matter what
it is. The military. That's why also we're bringing this up, because get used to, especially in the spec war world, it's necessary, it's valuable, it's extremely valuable, are the debriefs.
Absolutely.
Get used to it.
You will learn so much in a debrief, and you'll learn stuff to do again, and you'll learn stuff not to do again.
Yep.
You know, and
get used to doing it yourself. Debrief yourself. Not be overly critical, but just to say, I'm doing the right thing. I'm sleeping right. I'm eating right. I'm in a program. Okay, stick with it. Like that positive self-talk is all we're really talking about for a beginner.
Absolutely. All right. There you go. Debrief yourself.
Appreciate it, Stu.
All right, Jeff. We'll see you later.